With Objectivity, we add several key tools to our mental toolkit. It's inspiring to know that we can use these tools whenever we choose. We control when we use these tools and with what degree of honesty we use these tools. That's part of the empowerment, in that we control it. We control when we bring an objective mindset and when we don't. Similar to weight training, there are tangible benefits that come, over time, from the frequent and persistent use of objectivity. Mental fortitude, or mental strength, that's a benefit for sure, as is learning to have a little more mastery over ourselves, and a little more self-control when we want it to be there. Introspection and self-reflection are both key to gaining a deeper understanding of ourselves, what we prioritize in our minds and what we prioritize through our behavior. The more we understand who we are, the more we can bring to social, professional, and romantic relationships. When we avoid stereotyping and avoid generalizations, we can appreciate the individuality of others and gain understanding and appreciation of the value they bring to society and the world. Objective thinking helps us to be less manipulated by external forces, like advertisers, influencers, and targeted campaigns. It also empowers us by giving us more insight into recognizing the techniques those forces use to influence our thought and behavior. It's so important to be able to separate fact from fiction. Otherwise, false narratives can distort our views and dictate our behavior. Objective empowerment is also about mental freedom, free thinking without the burden of bias. It's a refreshing and genuine way to live. Being alert, focused in the moment, and in control, those are common goals for many athletes. The same can be said for professionals whose work requires precision, repeatability, and quality, not overthinking or underthinking the solution to a problem. Never being underprepared for a project or an opponent. Thinking rationally and without the entanglement that emotion can bring to a critical moment. For thousands of years, great thinkers and philosophers have debated and discussed many of the great questions of the universe. In the short time that it takes to complete these videos, we won't have time to dive into those. But we will focus on how we can approach any problem that requires a solution. We all know the saying, to think outside of the box. But what does that mean? It means to think outside the normal boundaries of what would be considered the set of possible solutions to that problem. It means to look at the problem with fresh eyes and an open mind. These two phrases share a meaning in that they both mean to be able to look at a problem objectively, without any bias towards one solution or away from another. To evaluate the available solutions, the available paths of action, and then decide the best options from those available. Objectivity is what allows us to assess and evaluate circumstances, conditions, and paths of action without bias. Bias, on the other hand, distorts our ability to objectively assess and evaluate circumstances, conditions, and paths of action. In this way, objectivity and bias are two ends of the same scale. Nobody is 100% objective, just like nobody is 100% biased. It's not a binary decision to be objective or not. Instead, it's defined in degrees of objectivity or bias. Those that are biased to a greater degree tend to be more chaotic in their behavior and thought, more illogical in their interpretation of reality. They also tend to be more impulsive and emotional in their decision-making, and erratic when they attempt to execute on a decision made. On the other end of the scale, those that are objective to a greater degree, they tend to be more logical in their interpretation of reality. They also tend to be more contemplative in their decision-making and more deliberate when executing upon a decision made. When we understand human personality in this way, then we can more easily recognize the patterns of behavior that reveal the objectivity or the bias. We can see it more clearly in ourselves, and we can see it more clearly in others. We also have a better sense of the dynamic and the external forces that are at work to influence behavior.